Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Healthy and Uplifted. Today, in honor of the National Suicide Awareness Month, we're going to be talking about a very important topic. It's called suicide prevention in our youth. It is indeed everyone's business. My name is Dr. Azumah. I'm the host and moderator of this great webinar, and I'm excited to introduce you to all my amazing speakers. So let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Azumah. I'm a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist, public health professional, community health educator, and social entrepreneur. I'm the founder of this platform, Healthy and Uplifted, also the founder of Azumah Solutions, LLC. I'm also the founder of Elevate Her Mind and the co-founder and president of an amazing organization called Love Your Menses, Inc. Apart from all of these companies that I have started, I am also a doula, a certified life coach, organizational consultant, blogger, speaker, and author. Before we get started, I would like us to review the agenda, right? So basically, I've given you the welcome remarks. For those joining us, welcome again. And we're going to do some housekeeping rules. I think housekeeping rules is very important because it allows us to set expectations. Then we're going to do some reflections, and then I'll introduce you to our speakers and the presentation. We will then wrap up and have closing remarks. We will also have vote of thanks and announcement. All right, in terms of housekeeping rules, by participating in this event, you grant permission to Healthy and Uplifted to use your name, image, or voice in any of its electronic, print, or multimedia publication. If you are against it, please notify me, the photographer, videographer, or event staff person, and we would acknowledge that. Please note that the information provided here is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice or diagnosis. A lot of us here are physician, board certified, but yet we still want you to engage with your own doctor if you need medical advice. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Healthy and Uplifted recognizes that the content of today's event may be triggering. It's a very sensitive topic for some. We have resources available to provide support. You might also reach out to our team if you need additional support. Views, languages, and opinion expressed by some of our speakers here do not necessarily reflect the company Healthy and Uplifted. All right, reflection. And I want our speakers here to think about it as well. Was there a time in your life you felt your life was over? That maybe it is better to no longer exist? I've had those moments, and it seems like those moments occur more frequent than I wish. I'm not suicidal at all, but I mean, I remember when I was a victim of a drunk driving accident and my body was burnt. It was a hard time, and at that time I didn't have health insurance. I thought the world was over. It was 2014, and now it's 2022. I am glad I didn't give up on life. I am now a mother. I'm practicing successfully. So yes, there was that time, but I am grateful I didn't give up. Next. So how can we teach our children that life is not always happy, right? That we are not always accepted and it is okay. Life is not always about happiness. Next. To the adults here and those listening on YouTube and on Facebook, when did you realize that problems are a part of life? Like, problems are a part of life. It was hard for me to accept that. I heard someone say, problems exist not because of who you are. Not because of who you are. Just because you're born to a woman means you would encounter problems. And it doesn't exist because of who you are. You might be the most perfect person. You might do things correctly, but problem has a way of finding you. So problems occur because of who you are not yet. You're not yet the person you should be. So the problems sometimes have a way of shaping you. So adults listening to me today, when did you realize that problems are really a part of life? Next. All right, I'm excited to introduce my speakers. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Let's go and introduce the first speaker. Oh my goodness. Woo! Okay, I'm sweating, you all. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Ijoma Nadim Opara. Okay, she's an amazing person. But you know what? She was always amazing. We've known each other since we were teenagers in Michigan, before we even started college at University of Michigan, and we went to the same medical school, Wayne State. Okay, don't skip ahead. Let me introduce her formally. It's just, I'm excited to see like my childhood friend, mentor do great things. I'm just so happy. All right, Dr. Ijoma Nadim is a double board certified physician in both internal medicine and pediatrics. She is an assistant professor at Wayne State University School of Medicine. That's my alma mater, and Wayne Health. She's the founding director of the Health, Equity, and Justice in Medicine Initiative. She's co-founding director of Wayne State University Global Health Alliance, and she co-created the Global Urban Health and Equity Curriculum. She is a member of the White House Office of Public Engagement Healthcare, Leaders in Minority Health, where she advises on anti-racism, health justice, and health equity. Keep listening. She's also the CEO and founder of Opara Speaks. She provides individuals and organizations the tools to transform their system into a just, equitable, and nurturing environment where Black brilliance thrives. She is a speaker, a consultant, a coach, a facilitator, and host a weekly Twitter Space Roundtable, Anti-Racism in Medicine. I'm so excited to have Dr. Ijoma Nadim Opara here with us. Next. All right, I know I've talked about Dr. Nadim. I'm also excited to have Dr. Effiong here. Dr. Effiong is my good friend. We do have a weekly prayer group called the Voices of the Elevated. It was founded by me. She joins me and we pray together because we believe in the power of prayers. Dr. Effiong is a board-certified pediatrician. She's a certified health coach with a focus on nutrition. She's a mother of 3. She's passionate about inspiring and equipping parents with strategies to heal from adverse childhood events. Adverse childhood events. You guys take note of that sentence. To prevent suicide, she develops a love for the brain and realizes the holistic what in kids. Her work has transformed lives of parents and their children. She advocates for children in foster care and is the founder of Kids of Hope, a nonprofit organization. Her organization shares love, hope, and dignity by providing children in foster care with bags filled with comfort and essential items. The next speaker. All right. Again, I'm excited to have Crystal Kemp. She's also a part of the Voices of the Elevated, our weekly prayer group with professional women. She is a licensed special clinical social worker. I've known this young lady a long time during residency, and it's just amazing to be surrounded by greatness. She's a certified tobacco treatment specialist, certified grief counselor for the Department of Veteran Affairs Medical Center in Kansas City, Missouri. Ms. Kemp works in the homeless program, serving homeless veterans with chronic mental illness and substance abuse. In addition to this, Crystal also facilitates and teaches tobacco cessation program to the employees at her medical campus. Crystal is also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, Inc. In her spare time, she loves playing the piano, the guitar, writing music, listening to jazz, and creating art. Next. All right, so now the presentation. So before we get started, I wanted us to talk about some facts about suicide. This information can be found on Google. It can be found on CDC. It could also be found on NIH website. So according to the CDC Centers of Disease Control, rates of suicide has increased. And suicide is the 8th leading cause of death in children ages 5 to 11. I'm curious to hear what our 3 panelists would talk about this subject. I just cannot understand how a 5-year-old would commit suicide. I really can't. Suicide is related to brain functions that affect decision making and behavioral control. It makes it difficult for people to find positive solutions. 90% of people who die by suicide have an underlying mental health condition, which are treatable. Some mental health conditions include depression, bipolar disorder, substance use. All of this mental health condition are strongly linked to suicidal thinking and behavior. No one takes their life for a single reason. It's multifactorial. Factorial. Life stresses combined with known risk factors such as adverse childhood trauma, substance use can contribute to someone taking their life. If someone can get through the intense and short moment of active suicidal crisis, chances are they will not die by suicide. Most people who survive a suicide attempt go on to live an engaging life. Next. There are ways to prevent suicide in your child. Educate yourself. Listen to this webinar again. It's going to be on YouTube for those listening live on Facebook. Learn about the greatest risk factors for suicide. Learn to make yourself available to your child and have caring and honest and transparent conversation. Be aware of the resources that are available to you, to your child, if that situation occurs. Next. Suicide most often occurs when stressors and health issues converge, creating feelings of hopelessness and despair. Untreated or undiagnosed conditions like we said, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and post-traumatic stress increases risk for suicide. I like how we broke this down, right? So in terms of the health, we've talked about mental health conditions. So those, again, can lead to suicide. Those are risk factors. What does that mean? It means if your child has depression, has bipolar disorder, watch out for those signs. I think all parents should, but parents that have children with this condition should pay closer attention. Or serious physical health conditions. Next. Environmental. Crystal, you said this. Access to little means can also lead to suicide. Prolonged stress, such as harassment and bullying. We have created a webinar on bullying. So if you guys want to go back on the YouTube, I think Crystal was there with us. You can listen to it. It was really, really helpful. You know, I did that webinar because my daughter was being bullied. And I was like, oh, no. This is Dr. Azumah's child. You ain't doing that. So I prayed about it, but I also went to the school and I decided to do a webinar on it. Stressful life events such as rejection, divorce, separation, financial crisis are also risk factors. And exposure to another person's suicide is also a risk factor. So if someone in your child's school commits suicide, please pay attention to your child. Next. Historical, like if a child has committed suicide before, that child is at risk for a repeat attempt. Or a family history of suicide, again, childhood abuse. Next. Again, one of the main warning signs is a change in behavior, especially during a change in the environment. Next. So we broke down the change in behavior into 3 parts. One of them is the speech. Don't take it lightly if your child tells you they want to kill themselves. I don't care if they're joking, even while talking to their friends. If your child says, I'm feeling hopeless, I have no reason to be alive, I'm burdened, I'm stressed, I'm being bullied, I feel trapped because of my sexual orientation, or unbearable pain. Next. Behavior. Is your child now doing drugs? You know, those are signs. Withdrawal from activity. Is your child isolating himself or herself from friends and family? Is your child sleeping too much? Not talking to people? Giving away items that they shouldn't? Being aggressive? Always tired? Next. Mood. Again, depression, anxiety, like we talked about next. Awesome. There's again the suicide prevention. There are ways to do that. As a physician, when I see a patient that has depression, I make them do a verbal contract with me. I said, if you feel like killing yourself, can you promise me you're going to call 911? Just remember, just call 911. Just call. Just call. So yes, 911 is there. There are trained professionals that can help you. There are crisis services, 24/7 crisis hotline. You just need to text hello, and someone will be there to help you. Again, there are ways to protect vulnerable people from committing suicide, which is getting help immediately, get access to mental health. Again, some people can argue that we don't have enough therapists, right? But just try, don't give up. Being connected to family. Family is so important. Making time for your kids is just important. Even busy women like us, we find time for our kids. Teaching your kids how to problem solve, how to cope, and telling them the truth. Happiness is not all the time. There's going to be problems. There are going to be people that don't accept you. Just because you're not accepted doesn't mean you should take away your life. Limiting access to lethal weapon. For those that believe in having guns in your house, please lock it. Religion, culture also can be protective. I went to church today. I felt really good because I was motivated. I was empowered to have hope. So find something that can empower your child, that in the midst of any problem, there's hope. Manage suicidal ideation and behavior. We will now open the floor for my speakers. Dr. Nadim, what do you think about the data that we just showed that 5 to 11-year-olds are committing suicide? It's just weird to me. Please help me with the data. Thank you. You look beautiful.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Greetings to you. Greetings to Miss Kemp. Greetings to Dr. F. Young. And greetings to everybody out there listening in cyber world, whichever you are, Facebook, YouTube, everything, Twitch. I just heard about Twitch. I said, oh my God, we don't have enough social media platforms again. Oh, LinkedIn, all of them. But thank you so much for the kind introduction. I was like, oh, Nami, they talk about, yeah. So, um, I appreciate your kind words, and it is an honor to be on your program and also to have watched you in your successful journey and ascent in the excellence that you are. So, thank you. You're very kind. You know, I have a couple of few comments. I'll start with what you mentioned. Actually, if I may, so I don't forget,
Yes, ma'am.
going back to resources, I want to lift up the 988 number and de-emphasize the 911 number. The reason why is because the Biden administration, the White House, I should just say, because regardless of who is sitting there, the White House, that office, the resources have been put away to really invest in focusing on mental health as its own sort of issue that deserves its own dedicated resources. And what we want to do is not criminalize mental health. And so 911 is a criminal justice system. And for so long, it has been intersected with, police have been asked to be social workers and nurses and even paramedics and all kinds of things that they were not trained for. All right. And as a result, we've been having not the best mental health experience. The mental health infrastructure in this country is still growing. I'll put it that way. And so one of the efforts to improve that is to dissociate criminality from mental health as a way to also destigmatize mental health, which is one of the things I think we should definitely take time to delve into when it comes to the topic of today. And again, thank you for bringing up this so highly needed topic because of all the ways that it affects us and all the ways that we avoid it in our communities. So I just want to lift up 988 as the number to call. And when you call that number, what you can be assured of is on the other side, there'll be a well-trained, highly trained mental health person in mental health that will take your call and lovingly and compassionately help you and guide you through the process, whereby a mobile mental health person or team can come out to you, or you can be directed to the nearest place that will provide the care that you need without necessarily involving the criminal justice system, aka the police. Okay, and that is so important when it comes to treating our folks that may be struggling at this time with mental health, that do not need to be further traumatized by exposure to the criminal justice system. So I want to lift that up. And if for whatever reason don't get what you need through 988, 911 is always there available. But I will always start with the dedicated mental health line. So the 988 number, and then there's other numbers that you showed. And I hope that you can, I see that you're putting it right on your ticker at the bottom of the screen. That's 717-741. You can text. So now, in response to your question, it is heartbreaking, okay, because I have three children, 8, 6, and 3, 8, 6, and 4. Just turned 4. I have three beautiful queens. All right, and the first one is like she's my Ada. Ada in my ethnic group, which is Igbo, is the title we give our first daughters, and it's a special, unique, loving title. I am also another. And I remember the first time she didn't get her way, and she was about 5, 6. Actually, she was like around 6-ish, give or take. And she wrote this note and threw it in my direction, which was like, I hate myself, I'll kill myself, because she didn't get her way on something. And as you can imagine, you can be a doctor and have 1,200 degrees, but in that moment, you're a mother, and your fear response is what kicks in before you start going into your training or what you know. And I was really, really scared, and very, very disturbed. And there are a number of thoughts that ran through my mind. Number one, am I a failure as a mother? Like, why should my child, I provide for them, their father and I provide for them, make sure they're safe and healthy, and they have everything they could ever need or even want. I make sure they're in good schools. I make sure I listen to them. I do all the things I think I'm supposed to be doing as a mom to take care of them. And yet my child would think that she wants to kill herself. What did I do wrong? That was one of my first thoughts. And then, oh my God, is she permanently broken? And there are all these thoughts that came to her mind. She was 6, to your point, Dr. Azumah, saying 5 to 11. So it is very real. I've heard of even younger. It happens. And so the question is, okay, Dr. Parra, what did you do? Well, if after I got over my own issues, I went to go, you said prayer. Prayer is life. And going to pray and also get in touch with my own issues, my own challenges. I myself, have struggled with my own bouts of depression throughout life and mental health. And it's something that I talk a lot, with my patients and families, and I understand the effects and the weight nature of mental health challenges. And I have tried to do a good job of normalizing these conversations in my household. My husband, who was born and raised in Nigeria, I was born and raised in Nigeria, but came to this country as an adolescent. My husband as a full-grown adult. The way we address mental health is very different, and we can go into that deeper later in the conversation. But I later in the day called my daughter aside, took her to a room and talked to her what's going on, tried to unpack what was happening with her, let her know, first of all, that I loved her unconditionally, and that, she should never be ever concerned about anything she can tell me. She can tell me. I'm always here for her. It doesn't matter. Until I've heard everything, almost everything in life. There's nothing that she would do that would shock me. I might be like, but I will not be shocked, and I will always love and accept her as she is. And so I think that really helped. And it's not just that moment, but making sure that my actions after that lined up with what I said. And I always continue to emphasize that among her and her sisters, that there is unconditional love and acceptance in this house, no matter who you are or how you are, period. And I'm very clear about that. I don't care what their sexuality becomes, their sexual orientation, if their religious choices. I don't care what it might be, that between their father and I, at least their father and I, but definitely their larger community, like grandparents and all the whole part of the village that is raising them, that there is unconditional love and acceptance of who they are, to role model how they should love and accept themselves, and that I also have to role model how to love and accept myself in terms of my own life. So I want to stop there, but I hope that this story, my own experience in this, can start to open and shed light in terms of how one way, at least this family, my family, dealt with this issue in this one moment in time.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Nadim, for sharing that and being transparent. That's one thing I always admire about you, and actually all three women here, is your transparency. I think as professional women, we've earned the degrees we want, the terminal degrees. So at this point, we're not ashamed of like pleasing anyone. Like we're like, we're successful, right? But we are still humans. So Crystal, Dr. Nadim talked about how her daughter said she wanted to commit suicide. Unfortunately, you have a relative that committed suicide. Can you share your experience and how that affected you? Because, okay, can I be selfish a little bit?
Yeah.
It's their life. They can take
Yeah.
it. So why
Yeah.
is it a big deal? Go ahead.
Thank you, doctor. And thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be in the presence of such beautiful and just godly women. It's just such a pleasure. My cousin that committed suicide did so in a very lethal means. Went to her car, took a gun, and shot herself and killed herself. It will be one of those questions that you never know of why a person chooses to take their life. We're from a very Christian family. We have faith. We believe in God. And you had a lot of individuals that view suicide as, well, you're not going to get in heaven because you killed yourself. It's a real, in my culture, that's very real. Suicide is very frowned upon if you do something like that. And really trying to understand, it allowed me to really have a deeper connection with my nieces that I know that had battled depression. One of my nieces, particularly, I'm thinking of. And being able to reach out to her and check in with her because she had posted something on Facebook, because now they use social media, the younger people do, that she was just tired of life. And I just wanted to let her know that she was beautiful. I love that doctor said that you're loved, because it's so important that we share that and we let that hope know, because a lot of times when people don't hear that reaffirmation of love, that I'm here for you, they feel like no one else cares. No one else is listening. And by reaching out to my niece, I felt in my spirit that I know that I made an impact on her life, that let her know that someone does care for you, someone does love you. I know that it's tough out there being a young woman. You're going into young adulthood, from teenager to young adulthood, and there's so many different things, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. So I will never know the reason why my cousin chose to kill herself. But one thing I can take from it is I can do better as a person, as a woman, to reach out to those others that I see that are going through.
Wow. Thank you so much. And sorry again for that little way of your cousin killing herself. I hope your family recovers. Dr. Effiong, what is the physiological reason why kids are more likely to commit suicide? Again, you guys, Dr. Effiong is a board certified pediatrician with a passion with preventing adversity after childhood trauma. Go ahead, Dr. Effiong.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zuma. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you, wonderful ladies. And so, to answer your question, um, in terms of childhood trauma, lots of research has actually discovered that trauma actually can start when the baby is still in mommy's womb. So even when mom is pregnant and she undergoes any sort of trauma or violence, it starts to make changes in the way the baby's brain is formed. And that was shocking when I first heard about that, because it wasn't something that was talked about when we were training in medical schools. Just in the last few years, we've started talking about how trauma can affect, like, how important it is, and how it can make changes in the way the brain forms. But then when children are born, I mean, they're helpless, they are dependent on the adults, and if they're already starting off life with trauma starting from in utero, and then they're born, and then it continues through neglect or any of that abuse, neglect, all of those things that can happen in childhood that we see that is so rampant. And with the pandemic, it's even become worse. And I think that contributes a lot to why we're seeing higher rates of suicide in children in particular. And so the way it works is that the trauma itself will make changes in the way the brain forms, and the formation of all the neurons and all of that inside of the brain. And the brain does remember trauma. So you have a child who's already set up and is at higher risk for depression, and their frontal lobe, which controls the way they make decisions and all of that, it's also very affected. Actually, that's one of the areas that's mostly affected. So you have a child that's already immature, or and then has this trauma hits to themselves, and then I mean whatever else is coming in at from with life, with school, and kids saying things to them, and teachers being stressed out and not knowingly saying things to children who do not have the capacity to handle those statements. And that's how you can have children who are depressed. But then it might show up as bad behavior. So unless we're really asking questions, and unless we, the parents, and even the medical community, we understand how all of these things work, then we can start asking those questions and not just write off the child as a bad child. That's where a lot of the problem is. So then the child feels that they're bad, even though there's this thing that has happened to their brain and we're not recognizing it. So
Thank you, Dr. Effiong. Dr. Effiong, question is for you. You talked about injury to the prefrontal lobe of the brain. Can that injury be reversed? Do you mind sharing the story of that kid that came to you that had behavioral problems, and you helped the child change behaviors? Can you share that story? I thought that story is powerful. You guys listening, go ahead.
Okay. So I had a 4-year-old young man come see me. He had just been in 10 foster homes in 6 months, if you can believe that. So going to 10 different strangers' homes, he has no idea, can't see his parents. And so he's brought into my office because in the last home he was hurt. And I was asked to diagnose him with ADHD. I mean, they came in and told me I should diagnose him with ADHD and put him on medication, but he's 4 years old. So I already know we're not asking the right question. So the kid is bouncing off the walls in the exam room. But what struck me was that he would run across the room and then would come and give me a hug. So I was in that room for about 15 minutes. I'm assuming I got at least 15 hugs from that kid. And to me, that was a sign of see me, hear me, I'm here, I'm human. Like, don't just write me off as another statistic. And I took note of that. And I asked the worker who brought him in, and I said, is it possible to find him a home where he will be loved? And the guy was looking at me like I was crazy. He's like, no, he has ADHD. I need you to give him some meds. And so I said to him, I need you to find a home where this child will be loved. I don't think this child has ADHD. And so he thought I was crazy. But 6 weeks later, I saw this kid again for a follow up. And this time he was with this amazing foster dad. He was sitting on the laps of the foster dad, came and gave me a hug one time. And he was calling the foster dad Papa. And the foster dad had his arms around him and was giving him a hug. The kid wasn't running around the room anymore. He wasn't doing anything like they said he was crazy and out of control. And so that brought back to me the power of love. And that's when I realized, oh, wait a second, how many kids have we just, without asking the right questions, we've like placed them on meds and done all these things, but they really just want to be seen as for who they are, which is a child that needs love. Because if you can imagine, you have no idea what's going on, you have no control. And then there's these strangers, you keep seeing them over and over and over, and they're hurting you. I mean, I would assume that I too would be crazy and act like I have no control. But it's the power of love. And that child has gone on to do really well because he was placed in a loving home. And yeah.
Wow. You guys, I had to make her share that story because I remember when she shared it with me in one of our discussions, how there is truly the power of love. She was almost influenced to diagnose a child with ADHD. Again, we're not against the diagnosis of ADHD, but we believe in properly diagnosing and not over treating young kids that are seeking help with medication, right? We are all doctors here or clinical professionals, so we're not against that. It's just, the power of love. Crystal, can you touch on this topic, the power of love, and how it can maybe decrease or prevent suicide in our homes? Is it true?
It
Go ahead.
is. I, that is just a, oh my God, that story was so powerful because love is important. Human touch is important. Just to give someone a hug. I remember when I was working with children and I worked with young kids that were in kindergarten that wanted to kill themselves. And the first thing they say, "Can I have a hug? Can I have a hug, Miss Kemp?" And just to be transparent, to give that child a hug, to let them know that someone loves you, because to be honest with you, they may have never heard that. They may hear that you're ugly, you're this, you're that, all these negative things. But we know that, and I'm not a doctor, but we know that from research that just showing love, even children that are placed in orphanages in Eastern Europe, they said that those kids, once they got human touch, they like their eyes open up. Before they were like closed and they were like off, but just giving them that human touch, giving them that love, giving them that warmth. And that's why it's so important. And one of the things when you had, the best thing that a parent can do is show love. And that's something that people don't. And we have to realize that a lot of children that we see, they may not always come from a loving environment or a loving home. If they're placed in 10 different foster cares and they're abusive, then how is that child supposed to thrive and be able to function when all these people are hurting them? So that where's the goodness in society? Love, that godly spirit, letting someone know that you are loved, that you are special. So love can change a lot of stuff. Love, to give someone a hug, to give someone a smile or a handshake, and let them know that you care about them. That's what I do in my practice of being a clinical therapist. I tell my patients, hey, good job. I give them those affirmations because they may not have heard those things growing up. And to give that person that affirmation, it changes, it's lifelong.
Wow, the affirmation is lifelong. Dr. Nadim, okay. I mean, help me articulate this. How can we, in the theme of the power of love, how can we still correct our children or teach them that life is not always rosy and yet not make them feel suicidal? How do you balance it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I want to first of all again respond to that powerful story. Thank you, Dr. F. Young, for sharing it. As you were speaking, I was recalling incidences just like yours. Folks come in, they've already predetermined the diagnosis or not. They're still concerned. Child is bouncing up and down, and in my head, I'm taking self correction. How often have I myself and taught my residents to ask the questions around trauma? This is something that is emerging new. We learn about ACEs, right? Adverse childhood experiences.
Yes, yes.
And we are only now beginning to understand. For those who don't know, adverse childhood experiences is basically, I think, about 10, experiences that when a child is exposed to during their childhood, person is exposed to during their childhood, increases their risk of developing chronic illnesses later in life, but a whole litany of them, from heart disease and hypertension to, of course, mental health challenges, like we say. And so I'm sitting here thinking about how often do we medicalize trauma, right? Rather than simply recognizing the signs of trauma, the loss of choice and agency, the loss of connection, and focusing on that, we give medication for that. And then, like you said, Dr. Azumah, of course, we are huge advocates for treating what needs to be treated. But I think there are times, like Dr. F. Young has illustrated beautifully, that we don't recognize those psychosocial conditions that require psychosocial, and some of us may say a more holistic approach to treating. And when I say holistic, includes the spiritual pieces, the cultural pieces, etc. Essentially coming down to connection. Some people may struggle with love, right? Because it can feel like an abstract thing. Like, what is love? And many of us are still trying to uncover that for ourselves. And we're talking about whatever action can be done to increase a sense of connection and a person, and in our case, our young people, in the case of this conversation, feeling that they are acceptable and accepted and valuable and valued just as they are. Okay. And the other lesson that I took away from Dr. F. Young's story is language. And Dr. F. Young talked about, bad behavior and bad children. And I think the other way we show love is in our words. There are no bad children. If this is something that we are saying to our children or to young people, I want to encourage and invite our audience to discontinue, to make a choice and a decision to discontinue saying that today. There are no bad children. Yes, we make poor choices, right? Children and adults, and we may exhibit unacceptable behavior or bad behavior. I do stay away from this whole good, bad binary business. Unacceptable, undesired, unpleasant, or just pretty much just describing that behavior for what it is. Is it jealous? Is it, unjust? Whatever the descriptor may be, but really staying away from this good and bad binarism that tends to put us in this sort of, place where it's like, oh, I'm a bad person, I'm going to hell, like Miss Kemp said, or bad things will happen to me. It gets very tricky. And so I think that us dissociating ourselves from these languages is another way to show love. I'll give you a story about Dr. Azumah, about how I try to, and again, I'm by no means perfect at all. I make mistakes all the time.
Yes,
So I want to start with that as a disclaimer. However, one thing I love about being Black and being part of the Black community is that one thing we do beautifully is we give each other props and we encourage each other, I think, in a powerful way. And I'll say this because of this story. We were in the store, and my daughter, the youngest one, Chimamanda, wanted some treats or something, some candy, which no, we're not having that at this time, right? So no, Chimamanda, there's no candy. When we get home, we'll have a meal. No, mommy, I want candy. I want it now. She starts stamping and she's like throwing the tantrum in the store, which I have warned them. We are not we one thing we're not finna do when we go to the store is you throwing tantrums in the store and embarrassing your mommy. Okay. And so that's what she did. And not even in a nice store, in the Dollar Tree. I was like, you're not going to the Dollar Tree. All right, you better save that for Neiman Marcus that we never go to. But in any event, so she started doing her thing, and she picked up the candy, because what a toddler is going to do is try you, okay, and test those boundaries. And so I just took the candy, put it back, paid for what we needed to pay for. She starts, nah, and then I just told her gently, baby, I love you, and we're not having candy, and we will have a meal when we get home. Now let's go. No. Okay, well, I guess the Dollar Tree now has a new staff member. And I walked away with her sisters who know better, and picked up the bags and walked away. And I was keeping an eye, to make sure she was okay in the back there, walk really slowly off. And then she starts slowly following me, man, the whole time. And then by the time we get to the curb, I take her hand, pull her across the curb, get her, to her seat. And I'm just like murmuring sweet nothings to her the whole time. So in that way, I showed her that, look, I love who you are. Now, what you're doing right now is not the business, but who you are, that never changes, like my love for you. But this activity is going to be tied to a consequence, right? The rule is we're not having the candy, and we're not having the candy. Like, that's not happening, right? But that doesn't mean you're still not my boo-boo and my sweetheart and my pecan pie. You're still everything to me. And also, we're not having the candy, and also we're leaving right now. And so it's the ability, I think, and this took time of practice. Like I said, I've made many mistakes, but to dissociate the child from their behavior, right? And to always be reminding them how much, I love them. And that's something like they need. And these children are really teaching me about how much we need love. And the little one has come up to me randomly, mommy, do you love me? Just randomly, like where everybody's mind there, someone's watching TV, someone's washing plates, someone's just picking their nose, and randomly just comes up just like, mommy, do you love me? And I'm like, yeah. Or maybe after she's done something she knows she's not supposed to do, and then later, mommy, are you still my friend? Do you still love? Yeah. And I've literally had to explicitly say, I will love you no matter what. I don't care what you do in this world. Will you have consequences for your choices? Yes, because that is life. Okay. Might as well learn it now because that's life. Okay. Things, are they always gonna go your way? No. And listen, you better be grateful for that, because sometimes our way don't make no damn sense. And thank God, God knows that, and that we don't get our way. But would I always love you no matter what you do? In a million lifetimes. Like, even if we both come back as different people, I will love you from wherever I am in the spirit world, always, even when you don't love me. And I have to be that explicit. I have to be that explicit. That never was my case. We're Nigerians, baby. Like, look, do you have food on the table and a roof over your head? That's love. Okay. That's love. All right. Okay. So don't ask me no questions. Okay. But hey, listen, the whole point, every generation is supposed to be better than the ones before them. And yes, I know my parents love me on well, I believe unconditionally. I wonder if I did not become a doctor, would that also, but like my mother was going to be a market woman, would she still love me? I don't know. That will prevent her from doing that. But we'll talk about that. That'll be a whole different discussion, Dr. Azumah. But let's stay on topic. Okay. And so, loving our kids in the words that we say, teaching ourselves to be explicit. And I'll say this, in order to do that, you can't give what you don't have. So, we also have to work with our own traumas, with all the ways that we as adults haven't connected to our own traumas and healed from our own traumas. This is actually part of my, what I knew as an adult. I needed to start my own healing journey from my own traumas, childhood and otherwise, because I can't give what I don't have. And I think this is so very important. So if there were two things I would say is healing our own trauma so that we can freely and unconditionally love others, and starting with our children in explicit ways, in the words that we say when we feel good and the words we say when we're pissed. Okay, the ways we take time out for ourselves so we don't say something that is gonna stay with that child for the rest of their life. How many of us, we're like 100 years old and we remember what was told to us when we were 2. We have patients we're taking care of now, 70-year-olds. They're still working out the trauma from when they were 2, 3, 4. It sticks with these kids, and it has impact down the line, right? So we have to work out on traumas. And secondly, too, is again destigmatizing destigmatizing mental health and mental health conversations, emotional conversations around vulnerability, because this is actually strength that allows us to build resilience in our children for the tough times of life. And I think oftentimes we don't recognize that when you have kids, because sometimes a kid might come home crying. Stop crying. How many times do we tell our kids, stop crying? I teach my children, crying is strength. Cry, get those feelings out. Ooh, and then when you're done to crying, now our brain can be free to actually problem solve. Right? How many times do we stunt the emotional expression of our children, constructive emotional expression of our children, because we don't know how to deal with our own emotions, right? But when we get there, when we're part of that healing journey, we're able to manage the emotionality of our children as they're working out what it means to be human in the world, and then give them the tools, equip them with the tools to handle it so that they're resilient when life does what life does oftentimes. So I'll end the comments there.
Wow, when life does life. Dr. Effiong, Dr. Nadim, that's what I'm used to. Dr. Nadim Opara, let me be respectful of her hyphenated name.
It's fine. It's not even hyphenated. Nadim is my middle name now. So you could call me Dr. Opara, you could call me Dr. Nadim, as long as you call me, baby.
Okay, cool. Seems good. I can do that, right? Because I've known her for a long time. Okay, so Dr. Opara did talk about something important about the Black community. As a Black physician, I feel like, I don't know what white physicians do, right? But as a Black physician, I realized that we're not just a clinician. We don't just diagnose and treat medical condition. We also treat the community. So how do we talk to patients that come in? I treat a lot of immigrant patients, and they come in and they're very rude to their kid, calling their kid names, like, saying all this negative stuff. Dr. Effiong, what's a good way of like coaching them or telling them, you could do better, without them saying you have now become Oyibo?
Mm.
I mean, Dr. Amara, you can even chime in,
No. I want to hear from my sister. Let her go.
Okay, all right. Dr. Efiago.
Okay. So when parents erupt in my waiting in my exam room, I often look at them and I say, Mom, your little one just wants some attention from you. So if and then I just gently tell them, you see, she wants some attention from you. So kids want attention and they come at it either negatively or positively. So it'll be really good if when he or she does something good that you say specifically what they do well, right? Because what we focus on will grow. And when they do something that isn't right, I want you to, as much as you can handle it, gently tell them that's not what I want you to do right now, and redirect them, because they're often, they're growing, their brains are growing, and like Dr. Opera said, they need to understand. They don't clearly know, like what she did with her little one in the grocery store or in Dollar Tree. They're looking to you to see what you're going to do and how you're going to handle it. So I often tell parents that's the way to do it. Don't just tell them good job when they are good. Tell them specifically what they've done, and they'll be more likely to repeat that. And when they are not acting right, just stay calm. And goes back to what Dr. Kwara said. We have to we have to talk to ourselves first. And I'm the first one in line to, I'm talking to myself as well. We have to talk to ourselves and count to 5. And I found that that's something that helps me. Before I erupt, I will like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it helps me calm myself down. And I share that with the parents. And then, at that point, that kid is actually sitting and listening to us. And I found that they've come back and told me that just that thing I shared with them really helped them. So.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much. It's now 51 minutes since we started this amazing conversation. Dr. Nadim, I'm so glad you're here. Dr. Effiong, Dr. Miss Camp has been here before. This is your first time, Dr. Opara, for coming. I hope you come back. I know it was last minute and you're like, I'm going to support you, but I hope you come back. I'm sure our audience will want to hear more from all of us. So, Crystal, we talked about the power of love. We talked about, you missed out what Dr. Effiong said, but she talked about counting 5, and she showed us ways that we can coach parents that have a disruptive child and are not behaving well. Do you have any final comments before we wrap the show?
I think, well, first of all, Dr. Azumah and Dr. Effion and Dr. Apara, amazing. I am just like, I want to be a patient, because I would just be like, so much love. But I think the one thing is listen to your children, be open minded and listen to them. I think a lot of times children get shut down and they kind of feel like they don't have a voice. And I just think active listening is a key, and find an interest that your child loves, because I think that, every child is different, and they may not like sports. Maybe they like music, or maybe they like art. Find that interest and develop that bond with them. And you got to reach your children. You got to be open. You got to listen to them, because a lot of times kids don't feel like they're being listened to by their parents or by the adults in their life.
Wow. Thank
And
you.
Dr. Azumah,
Yes,
I know we are close to time, but I really did want to build on what Dr. Effiong said, just in terms of, how sometimes the way we may treat our children, from a cultural standpoint. And I wanted to link into that comment around you're acting like Oyibo. I want to really encourage us as Africans and people of the diaspora that it is not an Oyibo thing to show love and care to your parents. It's actually very African. I mean, to your children. It's actually very African. It is a very African and very Black thing to love your children and bring them close to your heart. If you study the proverbs of your language, wherever you're from, okay, you could be Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Fulani, you could be
Ashanti.
Ashanti. I'm thinking of different ethnicities from all over the continent. You could be Zulu, you could be everywhere in the continent and the diaspora, Jamaican, Bahamas. You could be from Detroit, Mississippi, okay, DC, wherever you are. If you study those languages or proverbs, you will hear sayings that really lift up the child. Maka, like in our language, children are, a child is beautiful, is good, is a gift. If you study those, we really do praise that. I really want to make sure that, again, going back to, before I start talking about how do you take care of children, I'm always like, yo, how you take care of yourself? Are you on your own healing journey to really dismantle internalized beliefs of parenting that we've sort of internalized and believed and said that, oh, this is how you have a child, and then you just like the child just like is existing to be shouted at and beaten, and that is it until they grow up, and then you attend their marriage and eat jollof rice. I don't know, but like it's so much more. And I want to just say that there's nothing more African than love of your people, and especially the ones that came from your body, your loins, your child, to listen to them, to normalize difficult conversations, just every time just talking about it, also paying attention to how do you talk about mental health when things happen to other people. Are there people in your family with mental health challenges that y'all have hidden under the rug and you don't want to bring it up because of, again, these beliefs around, mental health? Y'all never talk about that uncle, cousin who did die by suicide or is struggling with depression or substance use, etc., and not addressing it from a place of love, but rather from a place of they're weak or something is wrong with them, rather than what happened to them. And that's something we say in trauma-informed work, right? That it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. And Dr. F. Young said that what happened to the child in the womb, what happened to the child at any point in life. When somebody is acting just sort of out of where we want that, we think we folks should be at. The question isn't what's wrong with that person, which is something we say, right? But rather, what if we can switch that to what happened to that person? What happened to that person? Because the default should be a person who loves life and is, just doing their thing, in life. But if they're not, what happened to them? And how can we show love? How can we interact, engage with them lovingly in order to mitigate the impact of that traumatic experience? So I would say that, for us, when we see when hurt people, if our mothers and our fathers themselves were not lovingly raised, it's very low likelihood they will lovingly raise their child. And I think a lot of us, our parents, each other, we just lack the tools. So thank God for doctors like Dr. F. Young and Dr. Azumah and our Miss Kim that are in the community. And that's what we all can do, all listening. How can we equip each other with the tools, starting at least with language and what we pronounce over our children, right? To address these challenging experiences, to reframe, and I'll end on this note, to reframe unpleasant or undesired behaviors as the expression of an unmet need. Asking ourselves, like, what is it that my child needs now that they are not receiving? That's why they're acting all over the place. Is it attention? Is it a hug, like a physical expression of love? Is it that they are hungry? Is it that they are tired? Is it that their routine has been disrupted? And on and on. Is it they don't feel heard or seen? Like, what is that unmet need that is showing up in this behavior? Okay, and then how can I meet that need? And this simple reframing, like Dr. F. Young said, can make all the difference in us and in our relationships with our children, and also just our relationships in general.
Woo! Okay, mic drop, y'all. You know what? I'm sitting down here and I'm excited because, Wald, these are the kind of friends I got. I'm blessed. I think they're great people on earth because I'm surrounded by greatness. With that said, thank you, Dr. F. Young, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Opara. Miss Kim, thank you so much for for joining us today. I really appreciate all of you. And guess what? The comments on Facebook and YouTube has been like crazy. People are enjoying this. I'm sure we're going to have a part 2, and I hope you guys will join us. So thank you. Isn't that useful information? I'm sure you guys have learned something today. Again, today, in honor of the National Suicide Prevention Month, we were talking about an important topic. Suicide prevention in our youth is indeed everyone's business. We talked about love, the power of correction, and healing as a tool to help us raise fine children. I'm now going to turn over this to our announcement. Ezra? All right. Next. All right, so future event. We're going to be doing something interesting. I'm going to be doing a self-care and wellness affair. It's going to be live in Atlanta. So join us. Go on that website, Glow Up Garden, for more information. Sorry, it's not clear enough. So if you're in Atlanta, join us, and we're just going to be providing information about self-care and wellness. That same weekend, I'm going to be talking about empowering mom using the triad. This is the triad I've come to realize of staying healthy. It includes exercising, having a good sleep habit, and nutrition. Those are the three triads that we'll be talking about. I think it's important for us to be empowered and uplifted. Next. All right. Again, as I said, I'm the co-founder and the president of Love Your Menses. We are taking menstrual awareness back to Africa. I'm so excited to be going to Kenya for our menstrual wellness event. People there have registered. Our event was supposed to host only 50 people, but I think we have I want to say 90 people already registered. One of our registrants says, "Hello, I'm Fatumata. I'm from Nairobi. She's a mentor. She interacts with girls, women, and boys, and she teaches them not just abstaining for sex, say no to drugs, and how we can save for the better tomorrow. Her expectation for that training is for us to tell her why do we always have painful period and how we can deal with it. It always puts me down while she has a period. So basically, she's talking about dysmenorrhea. So she wants us to teach her the causes of dysmenorrhea and how to prevent or treat it. Another person, her nickname is Mama County. She's from Nawari Ladies Community-based organization, also in Nairobi. She's passionate about SGBV, economic empowerment, and environmental conversation. She's looking forward to our training. She wants to learn, unlearn, relearn, and make new friends. So people there are already excited for us coming to provide them with this free training event. Again, like Dr. Opara says, we can help our community. We don't need to wait for the government to do that. I always believe in John F. Kennedy's statement, of us going to serve our community. So me, my team, my friends, we are very passionate about it. We feel that the Lord has given us opportunity, degrees, relationship. Now it's our duty to go out and conquer people so that they can live a successful life. Next. All right, I've written books. There are many ways to support me. Again, this is free programming. But if you want to support, go purchase one of my books. The Warrior Women Project is a project of immigrant women sharing our stories. Maya Learns About Menstruation is a book I co-wrote with my co-founder and executive director, Bria Gatson. It just talks about menstruation for those that need a tool to have a conversation with their child. And Jonathan and the Hole in His Shoes was my first book. It just talks about ways we can stand up for those that are bullied. Next. All right. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on my Facebook page, Healthy and Uplifted. Next. Again, thanks to all our participants, speakers, and planning team. Please email us with feedbacks. You can email me at healthyanduplifted@gmail.com. Next. Again, thank you so much for our production team. Israel Walker, you are an amazing intern. She's a future doctor. I just love you. Thank you, Noble Ndubisi. He's behind the scene. He's, our creative director. Latasha, she's not here with us. And I also have some other team members not included here. Ada Ukatu, thank you so much, all the way from Nigeria. Vera Martins, thank you so much. And again, I'm Dr. Azumah. Next. All right, sponsors. Our sponsors, Love Your Menses, Healthy and Uplifted, and Azumah Solutions. Next. All right. I always love to leave with a departing word. I'll find it. I think this captures everything we've talked about. Your child is not supposed to be who you envision them to be. Your child is supposed to be exactly who they are. Our job as parents is to guide them, not change them. Dr. Opara has stressed that. Dr. F. Young has stressed that. Miss Kem has also stressed that. Let us celebrate their authenticity. That is real love. Again, I am your host, Dr. Azumah. It's always a pleasure to come monthly and present to you, my amazing friends and speakers, as we try to encourage you to live a great life. Thank you. Bye-bye.